Welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. It is NFL Championship weekend, and here to break everything down is Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, thank you for joining me on this Friday night.
Hey, man, nowhere I'd rather be. We're getting close. We're getting close to Super Bowl Sunday here. We got 4 teams left. A couple of them we thought could get here, a couple of them that are surprises, and can't wait to break it all down for you.
Yeah, the only team that's really surprising to be here is Cincinnati. I didn't think they would be this good, at least at the beginning of the season. I did pick them against Buffalo last week, but we thought Kansas City and San Francisco would be here, and we both thought the Eagles would be good. You thought the Eagles would be better than I did, so you were all over that. Let's just jump right in with the early game on Sunday. The Philadelphia Eagles are 2.5-point favorites hosting the San Francisco 49ers. The over-under is 46.5, minus 150 for Philadelphia, plus 130 for San Francisco. Jimmy, how do you think this game's going to play out?
I really, really like the Eagles in the under. I was actually a little underwhelmed by San Francisco last week. I think the Eagles are a much better team, a better coach team than Dallas is. So I do think San Francisco's defense will contain Philly as much as possible, but I think the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl, man.
Oh, we disagree. I like San Francisco in this game. I think their defense is going to force Hurts to beat them from the pocket. I don't think he can.
I think he can. I really do. And I'm not sure if you can force him to stay in the pocket. I think he might be playing at that level right now. I don't know if they can scheme enough. I mean, San Francisco's defense is great. Philly's defense is really good too. I think there's a better chance of Brock Purdy making mistakes and playing to the Eagles' defensive strengths than the opposite for Jalen Hurts.
That is definitely a possibility. Philadelphia forced the most sacks in the leagues by a mile, and that is definitely something that Brock Purdy's going to have to deal with. I think Shanahan's going to scheme a lot of runs. I think he's going to take what he learned last week against Dallas with how Dallas was able to shut them down, and then you saw them make an adjustment late and get a big touchdown drive. I think they're going to implement a lot of that stuff, try to spread Philadelphia out, and just beat them to corners, and then occasionally hit them with the hard runs up the middle. But it really just boils down to, I don't believe in Jalen Hurts. And I've said it all year, and he's proven me wrong. And if he proves me wrong again, then hats off to him. But I think there's a big jump. I think there's a big difference between blowing out the New York Giants and then playing San Francisco. Like, I don't think the New York Giants are a very good football team. I think San Francisco is a significantly better team than New York.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We were all over that last week. We really felt that. We saw that happen. I will say, even if you don't believe in Jalen Hurts, I think Jalen Hurts' ceiling and floor in this game are closer together than Brock Purdy's ceiling and floor in this game. I think last week we started to see the game finally speed up for Brock Purdy. I think he made some mistakes, some plays he hadn't, some throws he hadn't been missing before. He was missing. I think Philadelphia is going to capitalize on that. I think they're going to see a lot of heavy boxes with a man over the top to try to keep Debo and Ayuk and Kittle in front of them. But I think you're going to see a lot of pressure right in Brock Purdy's face. And I believe, you've kind of believed in Brock Purdy pretty much from the start. You really liked what you saw. But just like you are with Jalen Hurts, I am with Brock Purdy. I don't think he's going to be up for this task. And I really believe Philly's going to win this game. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think both defenses are going to be the best units on the field. But I don't believe San Francisco can just contain A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Jalen Hurts all day. I don't believe that. I think there's a better chance that the Eagles can contain the 49ers playmakers than the other way around.
I certainly agree with the under. I think the defenses are going to mostly dictate this game. I think touchdowns are going to be at a premium. And with us disagreeing on this, our listeners are just going to have to make up their own damn minds based on what we said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's gonna be a hell of a football game. I think it's gonna be a hell of a football game. I think it can go either way. I've started looking at the player props. I just don't, man. Offensively, I don't really know how explosive either of these offenses are going to look. I do think San Francisco's first drive, I think they will be very conscious in getting Christian McCaffrey going. So I love McCaffrey for the first touchdown scored. That's what I'm focusing on.
He's
and
also great for an anytime score. He pretty much scores every game.
Yep, and I think I love an anytime score for AJ Brown, and I love Jalen Hurts' over on rushing yards.
Two things I want to bring up in defense of my pick of San Francisco against your pick of Philadelphia. San Francisco's been here before. The bulk of this team was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. There is some deep playoff. There's a lot of playoff experience. They were in the NFC Championship game last year. So we haven't seen Philadelphia play at that level yet, but they were in the Super Bowl not too long ago. But most of that roster's been turned over.
Yeah.
The other question I have for you is, what is your level of concern with A.J. Brown? He voiced some concerns. It's never good when your receiver has to come out and say, "I'm not a diva." So I'm just curious what are your thoughts on that situation there?
I think you're absolutely a diva, A.J. Brown, but we love you for it because all great wide receivers are divas. Don't try to fight it. I mean, when you leave a team that you played like 3 years for and say you were the greatest wide receiver the franchise has ever had, whether or not it's true, it's something you shouldn't do. You're definitely a diva, but be a diva. And I think part of what works with AJ Brown being a diva and being that large personality is how quietly good Devonta Smith is.
Yeah, it certainly helps to have.
I think it really helps.
Yeah, it's sort of the Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill situation there, where they just have two really solid players there, so you can't really, when teams would play Kansas City, they would want to bracket Kelsey, and you'd also want to bracket Hill, but you can't really do that if you're going to shut down the rest of the players on the field. And that's what Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle in Miami give you. You can't really just say, oh, we're just going to put two guys on A.J. Brown and, make them throw it somewhere else, because Smith can hurt you.
Yeah, and the thing.
But I think that's also something that plays into San Francisco's favor because they have so many weapons on offense.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised with Philadelphia if they kind of go like a reverse squeaky wheel, where it's like early on there's like a wide receiver screen to Devonta Smith where A.J. Brown's the lead blocker, to be like, look, I'm not a diva, I'm out here blocking. Like I could see something like that, and I agree with you. And like I said, I think for me it's just like you're absolutely right with what you say about San Francisco's core. And Brock Purdy did play in a very huge bowl game a couple years ago against Jalen Hurts. But Brock Purdy hasn't been in this situation. And I'm just not sure how he's going to handle it. He has surpassed how I thought he would play. Even last week he played better than I think I thought he was going to play. But I just don't think he's going to be able to match Jalen Hurts' output for the Eagles this week.
I actually agree with you there. I just don't think he has to for San Francisco to win.
That you could very well be right.
Our next matchup is a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. The Kansas City Chiefs are hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. This line's been all over the place. It was Chiefs minus 1.5. Then it was Chiefs minus 2.5. Then it swung all the way to Cincinnati minus 2.5. And now it is settled back at minus 1.5 for the Chiefs. The over-under is 48, plus 105 for the Bengals on the money line, minus 122. Cincinnati has won the last three matchups against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, And Patrick Mahomes, I don't know what's going on with that ankle injury, man. He was a full participant in practice today, and the video I saw didn't show him limping at all. So what the fuck do you think is going on there, Jimmy? What kind of performance do you think we'll get out of Mahomes?
I think the Chiefs are going to win this game by 10 points.
Ooh,
that is what I think.
They're going to blow them out.
I do, and I guess I think to me, this is like kind of like the new Belichick Brady situation. The Bengals have surpassed what I thought they were going to do this year. I thought they were going to be the last playoff team in, but I thought they were going to struggle more than they did. I will give them credit for that. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, they can look really good at times. When their offensive line is healthy, Joe Burrow gets hit too much. That offensive line is not healthy. I think it's going to make a difference, and I just don't believe Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow are good enough to beat Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City again. That's kind of what I'm basing all this on. Like that's how I feel. Like, I understand there's a lot of public money on Cincinnati. People really love this team. They love the swagger Joe Burrow has. They love everything the team's doing. I think a thing that'll be different this year as well is kind of the way Cincinnati, when the Chiefs had Tyreek Hill, the way Cincinnati stymied the Chiefs was by going to that zone defense. And now Patrick Mahomes is totally fine. That's by 1,000 paper cuts. He's totally fine with it now.
Yeah, he did that a lot this year.
He's evolved that part of his game. And I think if the Bengals try to do that zone defense again, I think he's going to dink and dunk all the way down the field to the point they'll have to bring a blitz. And I think whatever the status of his ankle, there ain't a damn thing wrong with his arm. And I just believe in Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid more than I believe in Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow absolutely has a chance to prove me wrong. I know a lot of people are on Cincinnati, but I am not. I am sticking with the team that I may have a card out there on for being the AFC champion. I'm sticking with the Chiefs. I think they're going to get it done.
I keep going back and forth on this game, much like the line has done. I like Kansas City initially. I don't have a lot of faith in Zach Taylor, although that defensive coordinator in Cincinnati puts together some great game plans. They were bringing pressure from all over, and Josh Allen had no idea what was happening. I don't think that will work against Patrick Mahomes because he is so good against the blitz, and he is going to look to get the ball out quickly regardless of what. I think he's just going to look to get the ball out quickly to minimize the impact on his ankle. On the other side, that Bengals defense has been playing well. They do seem to be chameleon-like. I like teams that can do that can play a bunch of different styles. On the other side of the ball, I do worry about the Chiefs' defense. Cincy's receiving core is so good, and Burrow likes to take shots downfield, and Spagnuolo's going to blitz, so they're going to get opportunities one-on-one. The question is, are they going to be able to make the most out of those opportunities? So I like Cincinnati to get at least one big pass play. I like it to probably, it's going to be Chase or Higgins. So I think if you put something down on either one of them as a touchdown scorer, you're going to be good. The reason I like Kansas City in this game, though, is because of Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
He gives the Kansas City Chiefs another dimension and just another way to attack that they just didn't have last year. And he gives them a real running presence. We see it time and again. If you are one-dimensional, you are easy to defend. Even if you're playing a team that's not very good defensively, if they can make you one-dimensional, they can slow you down. And with Pacheco back there, it gives them a real running attack, and it gives defenses something that they have to pay attention to, and that just seems to open things up. The real question is, how healthy is Mahomes? The last time he had an ankle injury, he came back and threw for like 450 yards and 4 touchdowns. So if this ankle injury is as bad as that one, then he should be fine.
Yeah. Now I will say, kind of what you're talking about with the one dimension. I think it goes on the other side as well. Jacksonville ran the ball at almost 7.5 yards per attempt. So maybe Joe Mixon eats in this game. Like I think that may be something for the Bengals to do. That might also keep Joe Burrow upright as well. Like
I don't know. That just
Spat,
doesn't seem to be something Cincinnati ever really wants to do.
I agree. They don't want to take the ball out of Burrow's hand, and Spags' blitzes have been looking really good here the last few weeks they've played. So I like what Kansas City's doing on both sides of the ball. And I think they're going to get it done this time. I really do. Once again, man, I think the Bengals, and I definitely think the Bengals I see plenty of paths to the Bengals winning this game outright. I just feel more confident in Kansas City than I do in Cincinnati. I just think, regardless of how easy they made it look last week, I think beating Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes in back-to-back weeks is a really, really tall task, and I just don't think they're up for it.
To further the point about Spagnuolo blitzing, I like Chris Jones to get his first playoff sack. I also like Frank Clark, who is surprisingly fourth on the all-time playoff sack list, which was surprising to me. But he just seems to eat in the playoffs. I like both of those guys to get sacks. If you want to throw a little bit on some of the other members of the front seven, I think those are good bets, much like how we played it last year in the Super Bowl against Cincinnati and that beat-up offensive line. We pretty much just bet everybody in the front seven to get a sack, and I think 6 of them hit. So I definitely like Jones. I definitely like Clark. If you want to bet on some of the other guys, I think if you've got some winnings, I think that's a good way to try to further that.
I also think I also like this to play really well in this game as well. I think he adds another dimension that makes the defense better, and I just think there are so many weapons offensively for the Chiefs. They have figured out such a good scheme. I really do believe the Chiefs and the Eagles are coming out in these games. I like the unders in both games. I think the Eagles-Niners game is going to be closer. I really do. If the Bengals win, I think they probably win by 2 scores. Like, I don't necessarily think the Chiefs-Bengals game is going to be real close. I think one team is going to grab momentum and roll with it and be a pretty decisive victor.
Interesting. I think that Philly-San Fran game is going to probably be, as our good friend JR would say, a slobber knocker.
Yeah, absolutely. And as our friend Joey Styles would say, I definitely think there are going to be a couple oh my god moments in that game.
As far as player props with Kansas City game, I mean, any overs with Travis Kelce seem to hit in the playoffs. We were always on that for you. It all hit last week.
Oh yeah.
Even with Mahomes not in there, you can see he's the guy they're going to look for in the red zone when they need a score. And that pick play that they ran is basically unguardable.
Yeah.
And if they need it, they're probably going to run it again. So I like Kelce to score in this game. I like Pacheco to go over as well on his yardage.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. I think, I think Pacheco is the evolution of the running back that Andy Reid really knows how to utilize. And we just keep seeing it every week. And I love Pacheco. I love Pacheco for an anytime touchdown score in this game. I think the Chiefs offense is going to roll. I think they're probably tired of hearing about the losses to Cincinnati and about Joe Burrow. And I think, we know Mahomes has been doing it. It's kind of been subtle all year, but Mahomes has kind of been reminding everybody all year, I'm still that dude. And I think he's going to remind everybody in this game. I think it's going to be a long-ass day for the Bengals secondary, and I just don't think they're going to be able to get it done.
Well, I know for the sake of the AFC, Cincinnati better hope they win because the Chiefs have a ton of picks. They're already where they are. Their defensive players have improved over the course of this season. The rookies, you expect them to at least be a little better next year. Like, I think Kansas City's set up to be really good for the next 5 to 10 years. And they're going to be right back here. Meanwhile, other teams are going to have to pay people. It's going to be a big offseason for Cincinnati. They're going to have to pay Joe Burrow. They're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. They're going to figure out what to do with Higgins. Man, Nick Wright says it all the time, but like he's right. The rest of the AFC isn't really in a position to allow Kansas City to win this year and next year because it's just going to get more difficult for those other teams. If Kansas City goes to another Super Bowl and wins it, man, they're going to be dynasty talk will be earned.
Yeah, and I just think I think this year even more so than last year. I just think Kansas City has more upside potential depth than they did last year, and I really believe that. Like, do I think Travis Kelce is the X factor and can absolutely just destroy the middle of the Bengals defense? Yeah. But if it was Noah Gray, would I be surprised? No. If Sky Moore caught a bomb, would you be surprised? No. If it was McKinnon instead of Pacheco, you wouldn't be surprised. You know what I mean? I think Andy Reid has done a great job working with the depth of his weapons on both sides of the ball. Spags really seems to have the defense roaring. I think they're going to have to play better against the run. I don't think the Bengals will run a lot because they just want Joe Burrow to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Which I think plays into what the Chiefs want. The Chiefs want every opportunity to blitz the passer. So I think it's going to be a heck of a football game, but I really do think Kansas City is going to kind of just control this thing from the beginning. I think they're going to right the wrongs of the last couple games against the Bengals, and we're going to have an Andy Reid Bowl for the Super Bowl.
Let's talk some Jimmy, some coaches got hired.
Man,
and there's some interesting hires.
No, there's not. No, there's not.
We have never really liked as a head coach. Frank Reich is now going to be the head coach in Carolina. I'm not sure why. I can't wait for the summer reports that Frank Reich is getting the best out of Sam Darnold we've ever seen. It's going to be hilarious. But it won't be as hilarious as the New York Jets hired Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator. Are they going to be like Denver was last year, that they're going to hire this guy hoping to get Aaron Rodgers, and then they're not going to get Aaron Rodgers?
Well, they better hope so, because every offense Nathaniel Hackett has been the OC of, without Aaron Rodgers, the best they've ever done is 18th in the NFL. So you better hope Aaron Rodgers comes.
I mean, he's an offensive coordinator that doesn't call plays until last year.
Yeah, I'm with you, bro.
He's going to get the best out of, I don't know, Mike White, Zach Wilson,
Derek Carr,
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right, I can't.
Oh, my God, that's my dream scenario. They're going to sign Jimmy Garoppolo with Nathaniel Hackett, and Garoppolo's going to be a disaster. And it's going to happen after Purdy takes San Francisco to the Super Bowl and prove what we've been saying all along, that Jimmy Garoppolo's not that good.
That scenario is very plausible. It is very plausible. No, if you've listened to our podcast for the last 3 years, you know how we feel about Frank Reich as a head coach. I think Frank Reich is a good coordinator. I don't believe Frank Reich as a head coach can be successful at the highest level. I think if your team is fine being a couple games over 500 and losing in the playoffs, Frank Reich is your guy. If you are
that
a
might
team,
be what Carolina's looking for.
And it could be. But I think if you're a team with actual aspirations, Frank Reich's going to let you down. And I don't know what Frank Reich can really do for Sam Darnold. I really don't know.
I don't think anybody can do anything for Sam Darnold. I know people want to say he showed life last year, but if you look at that Carolina offense, The only time Darnold looked any good was when they were getting substantial numbers on the ground. It's just they have to run the ball for him to be effective, and that makes him no better than any other quarterback.
No, I absolutely agree with you. It is just, even if Sam Darnold, even if there is something there, like Frank Reich kind of proved he can't make any quarterback any better.
No, that's a good point. He had that, everybody talks about the revolving door of quarterbacks he had in Indianapolis, but that was because he wasn't getting the most out of them and they weren't performing very well.
Yeah, so I don't know which one of these hirings pisses me off more. I mean, I know when Jim Irsay announces Jeff Saturday as the head coach of the Colts, that's going to be the one that pisses me off the most.
Oh, I'm going to be celebrating. I'm just going to be thinking about all the bets I'll be making against the Indianapolis Colts because the team's a mess.
Yeah.
What are they going to come back? Not to get into the Colts, but what, they're going to come back with Matt Ryan? Like, come on.
Not to here on No Broken Legs, we like to call it as we see it, and there are a lot of black offensive and defensive coordinators in the NFL who were hired for shitty head coaching jobs, who actually did decent with the talent they were given, were fired when they probably shouldn't have been, and cannot get another chance at a job, while Frank Reich and Nathaniel Hackett failed miserably and are immediately hired for high-key positions within organizations, and it pisses me off.
Hear. Let's wrap with a quick segment. What do you think separates the 4 teams that are playing this weekend and the Cleveland Browns? How far away are the Cleveland Browns as we enter the offseason?
The Cleveland Browns that I watched play the end of the year with Deshaun Watson, I think are nowhere in the ballpark of the 2 teams I think are going to lose this weekend, let alone the 2 teams that I think are going to win.
I completely agree with that statement. I think the Browns could go out this offseason and get 2 impact free agents and draft 2 players that have an impact as rookies, and they still might not make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. Well, so how about this? Okay, so if you talk to people outside of Philadelphia and outside of Cincinnati, and you asked them to name the playmakers on the defenses for the Eagles, the Bengals, and the Browns, probably the majority of football fans could name you 3 or 4 or 5 first-round draft pick playmakers for the Cleveland Browns defense. They probably can't do that for Philadelphia and Cincinnati, but both of those defenses are significantly better. Maybe that changes with Jim Schwartz. I hope it does. We'll see.
Well, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but you know what Cincinnati and Philadelphia have that the Browns don't? Some pretty good defensive tackles.
It just keeps coming back to that middle of the defense for us, huh?
I'm look at championship teams over forever. They've got good offensive and defensive lines. They're built from the middle out. I think, like, how many times do we have to see it? Like, Andy Reid's been a winning coach in the NFL for 2 decades, and his primary thing is make sure you're good up front.
I think to actually answer your question, I think the thing that these 4 teams do the best, that I think the Cleveland Browns do the worst, is actually identifying and knowing what their key players do best and letting them do it.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. We never talk about San Francisco guys not getting touches.
Yep.
Or it never seems like their guys aren't getting touches. Like, their guys don't seem to disappear for long stretches.
Yep.
And that's something that we see regularly with the Browns. I don't think they feed their players enough. We talk about feeding Chubb, but I think they also need to get, Njoku needs to get 2 passes thrown his way at least every quarter. I mean, this like three catches on 5 targets thing's kind of ridiculous if you're going to pay him as much as you're paying him.
Yep.
And if I'm going to see, oh, well, on a per catch basis, his numbers are as good as the best guys in the league. Well, I mean, so what if his production's 2/3 of those guys because he's not getting the targets? Like, I'd rather see him catch 3 more balls a game and be 6% less effective per catch because his overall production is going to be higher. And you can't, I don't know. It's just like they're trying to win everything in the aggregate, and it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of football feel to it. And
Right.
That's another big thing that just these teams seem to have a really good understanding of the moment and a good understanding of football and a good feel for the game, as we like to call it.
Yeah, well, because I think a lot of that comes down to, if we want to go ahead and, we'll kind of hone in on San Francisco as a comparison team. Like, I think a combination of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are as good, if not better, than Christian McCaffrey. Now, I don't think Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and David Njoku are as good of a trio as Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. I don't think they're that level, but they could get to that level. But the problem is, you watch San Francisco run play after play with all those guys on the field, and somehow somebody is wide open all the time. And it never feels like the Browns have a player wide open.
Well, if you listen to the Pro Football Focus guys, they say that there's, Stefanski's always scheming guys open. I don't know. That's what they say. Apparently, they watch more film than I do, clearly, and they've got all the numbers, and again, it's
but how about
it seems like the Browns are a team that's driven by analytics, and the analytics love the Browns, but just because they're good in all these categories doesn't mean they're good at winning football games.
Right. Well, yeah, because they are wide open. They are wide open when they run a 4-yard curl on 3rd and 8. Yeah, they're wide open, catch the ball, and get tackled. Like,
I have a random stat that I saw today that blew my mind. Jimmy, who do you think had more receiving yards as a running back, Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt?
Gotta be, but not Nick Chubb? That can't possibly be right.
So here are the Browns' leading receivers in the 2022 season. Amari Cooper had 1,160 yards. Not bad. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 839. Pretty solid season for him. Njoku, 628, 10.8 average. Again, I need to see more production. I need to see more targets.
I agree.
Number 4, Nick Chubb, 239 yards.
Kareem Hunt didn't have 250
Kareem
yards.
Hunt had 210 yards.
Jesus.
He had 35 catches on 44 targets. Nick Chubb had 27 catches on 37 targets. So, can somebody explain to me again why Nick Chubb's not on the field for 3rd downs?
Maybe. You think Kevin Stefanski knows that stat?
I would assume he does because they run all these numbers.
Oh, wow. So we take Nick Chubb off the field for our 3rd down specialist, and wow.
Kareem Hunt had fewer receiving yards than David Bell.
Jeez, and this is why
Harrison Bryant.
And this is why the Cleveland Browns are very far away from these 4 teams.
How many catches do you think Anthony Schwartz had this year?
6.
Oh, you're pretty close. It was 4. Yeah, we talked about it. They need they need another Amari Cooper or better level receiver away on offense and just a better feel in terms of play calling. And on defense, I think they're at least one excellent defensive tackle or 2 pretty good defensive tackles, a linebacker, and somebody in the back end of that defense that can organize what's going on, because that certainly wasn't Johnson. But I think that's what they're those 5 players away, along with a better organization and coaching staff. No, I think
Right, and
Jim Schwartz should help that, but
right, and all
I still
of that,
worry about Stefanski for the reasons we've talked about in past podcasts. So I think the Browns have
right,
their work really cut out for them.
and all that is also contingent on Deshaun Watson being better, which we don't really believe he's going to be.
No, Jason LaCanfora kind of got ripped to shreds in Cleveland media for saying that he doesn't think he's ever going to be anywhere close to that guy again.
Well, I think Jason LaCanfora is pretty smart. I think he feels the same way we do. And there's a lot of people, there are a lot of talking heads that have said it, like, regardless of the circumstances, even if it was coming back from injury-related stuff, man, 2 years without the punishment of NFL football is a lot to get back into.
Especially when you just signed for $250 million guaranteed.
Right. So wow, I don't like you putting it like that.
That's that's like the Conor McGregor thing. It's like, yeah, when you're winning, like you can be a cocky asshole, but then, you're cashing all these big checks, and then all of a sudden Khabib chokes you out. All of a sudden you won't get hit in the face anymore. Same thing with Ronda Rousey.
Yep.
Like these, they found ways to make money outside of the octagon, and it's like, oh, I like making money where I don't get punched in the face. Like, I think a lot of that's going on for Watson right now. It'll be a really interesting offseason, and I think it's also worrisome for Browns fans. When Watson, everybody keeps talking about how good Watson was in 2020. He led the league in passing because that team was garbage. They won 4 games, which means they were behind a lot. He was throwing a lot against a lot of loose prevent defenses. That's kind of why I think he was better in 2019.
Yeah, I
agree.
They
had DeAndre Hopkins. That team was a playoff team. Yeah. And they jumped all over Kansas City early, and then they just fell apart.
Yep.
And I don't see a lot of resiliency in Deshaun Watson's game. I guess he got better, but I don't necessarily know if he got better or if he just, that's the natural catching up to the speed of the game, and this is who he is. Because I think what we've seen from Deshaun Watson is closer to what we're going to get than what people are expecting. Because I think a lot of people are expecting him to be as good as 2020, if not better.
And I just don't know how you can think that. I just really don't. I really don't. And
they're going to be lining up on the 480 bridge if next year Deshaun Watson is, basically like next year's Russell Wilson.
You ain't wrong.
Like it's
yeah.
I mean, but because it's not even in, people don't even want to entertain that idea, even though it seems like it's very much on the board. So to kind of wrap up, we both think the Browns are pretty far away from where these 4 teams are.
Well, and the worst part about it, though, brother, is not only do I think the Browns are pretty far away from these 4 teams, I also think the Browns are still pretty far away from Baltimore as well, depending on their quarterback situation. And if you're the 3rd best team in your division, getting to the playoffs is pretty tough.
Yeah. I'm still not scared of Kenny Pickett. I think the rest of that Pittsburgh team is good. I think Mike Tomlin's an excellent coach, but Kenny Pickett had moments where he looked good. He had moments where he looked bad. We'll see what he looks like next year. You would expect the Chargers to be better, but I don't see why anything's going to change there, and they're already better than the Browns.
Well,
Kansas City's Kansas City. Buffalo, despite their problems, I think is a better team than the Browns. And that's a question that I asked you and Luke. Was Deshaun Watson in 2019 and 2020 better than what we've seen from Deshaun Watson the last 3 years? Because what we've seen from Josh Allen the last 3 years wasn't good enough to even make a Super Bowl.
Right. With a pretty good roster around him.
Yeah. Do you think this is it for Buffalo? Do you think they ever sort of, like, this is... Everybody seems to be counting their demise. I mean, they get Von Miller back next year. I know they got to pay some guys, but I expect them to be back in the mix next year. I don't know if they'll be quite as formidable, though.
I think it depends I think it depends on if the offense can continue to evolve. I just really believe you have to get away from all of the quarterback power running game plays. I really believe they have to get away from that bullshit. And I really do. I really believe that. I think if the offense can evolve a little bit to let Josh Allen be Josh Allen without forcing Josh Allen to be Josh Allen, if that makes sense.
I hear a lot of the same things people used to say about Brett Favre that never changed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. But
And
I
we've
still like.
seen, this is a Nick Wright stat, but Brian Daboll gets Josh Allen to stop turning the ball over. He leaves. All of a sudden, Josh Allen's turning the ball over. Daniel
Yep.
Jones goes from being a turnover machine to posting one of the best turnover margins for a quarterback in the history of the sport.
Yep.
I don't know, man. Ken Dorsey doesn't seem like the guy. I definitely didn't think the loss of Daboll was going to be that big of a deal, but I mean, this last year has showed that it definitely was. But I still think they're the best team in that division because I still don't believe in Miami. Tua's not going to play in the All-Pro flag football game because he's still in concussion protocol. That's probably bad.
Well, but
that's not good that your quarterback can't play because of a concussion 3 weeks ago and he can't play in a flag football game.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing about. That's still the crazy part about the AFC to me because I had said it early in the year. I made some money betting on them this year. I think minus the quarterback position, I think the New York Jets have a very good young roster, and I think if you get a quarterback in there
for real,
and they've got playmakers, I think the Jets,
the running back they get back next year too. He got hurt this year.
Yeah, I think the Jets can quickly come up. I still think Jacksonville and Tennessee, if Tennessee fixes a couple things, I still think Jacksonville
if Tennessee gets a quarterback.
Listen, I wasn't gonna do it. I wasn't gonna bash it. I wasn't gonna do it. But yeah, if they can figure out a way to upgrade from Tannehill, then I think Tennessee can be right back to where they were. We like Jacksonville with all these freaking draft picks Houston has. Houston could shoot up a little bit.
I'm not worried about Houston for at least another 2 or 3 years. But I think your point about Jacksonville is well made because not just do they have a good roster and it looks like they have a young up-and-coming quarterback, but Doug Peterson's a hell of a coach.
Yeah. The AFC is tough, man. It's going to keep being tough. And Andrew Berry has a lot of work to do. I think he has a lot of work to do.
This team went all in, and they're basically going to be where they would have been if they would have just kept Baker.
Don't say that out loud.
They're going to be like, in or out of the playoffs, first or second round exit.
Well, I don't know. There are a lot of teams this past offseason that signed impact players at positions other than quarterback that the Cleveland Browns couldn't do because they were courting Deshaun Watson. So I know
people are saying they can open up a lot of cap room, but so can everybody else. I don't know. I just don't think they have enough. They don't have enough ammunition to fix the problems they have because they're still recovering from 1-31.
Yeah.
And I think the fans are overvaluing the roster because of those 1-31 seasons where they saw teams that were so devoid of talent that now they got a little bit of talent. They think it's the best. They're making the same mistake that we made with Baker. We had seen such bad quarterback play for so long that, we got a good glimpse of what good quarterback play could look like. We jumped all over it. We weren't fooled when Jacoby Brissett did it, but I don't know. It looks like they're doing the same thing with the roster. But I guess we'll get more into that as the offseason progresses and they make their moves. We'll see what they do. Free agency doesn't start till March. But
I can't wait. We'll start looking for all of our diehard Browns fans out there, we'll get you a list of free agents we think the Browns need to go after. We'll start working on our mock draft and let you know how we think I do think, Evan, and I believe that Andrew Berry and the front office see the same problems we see. Now,
Well, I don't know if I agree with that statement because.
but I don't know if the analytics let them value those positions.
Okay, that's a good way of putting it.
So we'll probably end up telling you the players we think the Browns should go after and should draft, and then we'll give you a separate list of the players we think the Browns will go after and will draft. Because they're probably going to be two significantly different lists of
that is
players.
usually how that goes.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably as good a place to wrap it up as any, Jimmy. Thank you for joining me tonight. Talk some football. Excited for championship weekend here.
Yes, sir. No place I'd rather be, brother.
And I would like to thank all of you for listening. Please give us a like or a subscribe so that you can catch up on our latest podcasts. We will definitely have all sorts of fun dissecting the Super Bowl and all the prop bets. We'll have that for you in the next 2 weeks before the big game. Until then, for Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore, and we are no broken legs.